The bouquet hit the ground first. The soft flower petals flew into the air and landed all over the sidewalk. Then came the laughter, loud and mean. A little girl, only 12 years old, stood frozen behind her tiny flower stand. Her hands shook as she watched 6 big men on motorcycles stop in front of her. They were rough-looking, wearing leather jackets and covered in tattoos. They looked scary. One of them, a tall, strong man with a big beard and a cruel smile, grabbed a bunch of flowers from her stand. He spun them in his fingers before crushing them into tiny pieces. "Are you selling flowers or garbage, little girl?" he said with a smirk. He threw the broken petals on the ground like they were nothing. The girl's voice was small but strong. "You broke it. You have to pay for it," she said. The bikers laughed even louder. Another one kicked her wooden flower stand. It tipped over and all the flowers spilled onto the pavement. The leader of the gang, the big bearded man, lifted his heavy boot and knocked over her small cash box. Coins rolled across the sidewalk. People walking by saw what was happening. Some stopped for a second, but then they hurried away. No one wanted trouble. But someone had already stopped. A few feet away, a man was sitting at a cafe table, drinking his coffee. He slowly put his cup down and watched the scene with sharp eyes. His jaw tightened. His name was Jason Statham. The girl clenched her fists. The bikers were still laughing. Jason pushed his chair back. The bikers had no idea what was about to happen. The sun was starting to set, making long shadows stretch across the busy street. People rushed by, lost in their own worlds, not noticing the little flower stand. The air smelled like fresh flowers mixed with the smoky smell of cars passing by. The 12-year-old girl stood by her stand, arranging flowers with careful hands. This wasn't just a hobby. She had to sell these flowers to help her sick mother. The money paid for medicine, food, and keeping their small home warm. But today wasn't a good day. A loud noise made people turn their heads. 6 motorcycles rumbled down the street and stopped right next to the flower stand. The sound of the engines was deep and rough, like thunder. People walking by quickly moved aside. No one wanted to get in the way of the bikers. The biggest man in the group, the one with the thick beard and leather jacket covered in patches, stepped forward. He looked at the flower stand with a smirk. "What's this?" he said, pretending to be confused. "Is this a little charity stand?" Before the girl could say anything, one of the bikers grabbed a handful of flowers and threw them into the air. The petals floated down like confetti. "Oops," he said, laughing. Another biker lifted his boot and kicked the stand. A small glass vase fell and shattered into tiny pieces on the ground. The girl's hands clenched into fists. But her voice was calm and steady when she spoke. "You broke it. You have to pay for it." The leader raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah," he said, smiling. "And what if we don't?" He reached out for the last bouquet of flowers, ready to crush them too. But before he could touch them, a strong hand grabbed his wrist. The laughter stopped. The leader turned his head, looking at the man who had stopped him. He found himself staring into the cold, serious eyes of Jason Statham. "I wouldn't do that," Jason said quietly. Silence. The bikers weren't laughing anymore. The leader yanked his arm free and glared at Jason. His face, covered in scars, twisted in anger. "Who the hell are you?" he spat. Jason didn't answer. He didn't blink. He just stood there, still as a statue. The other bikers exchanged looks. They weren't sure what to make of this man. The leader scoffed. "Pick up the flowers. Pay for them." Then Jason spoke. His voice was calm but strong like a rock. "Pick up the flowers. Pay what you owe. Walk away." The leader blinked in surprise, then let out a loud, fake laugh. "Oh, we got a tough guy here, huh?" One of the other bikers, a skinny man covered in tattoos, smirked. "What are you gonna do, old man?" he sneered. Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. The leader grinned. "That's what I thought." Then, wham! A biker swung his fist straight at Jason's face. Jason didn't move. He caught the punch midair. The biker's eyes widened in shock. Before he could react, Jason twisted his wrist and drove his elbow hard into the biker's ribs. Crack! The biker gasped. His face turned pale. He stumbled back, clutching his side before falling onto the pavement. The street went silent. The gang's cocky smiles disappeared. 2 bikers jumped at Jason at the same time. Jason stepped to the side smoothly. The first biker flew forward and crashed into a parked car with a loud bang. He groaned in pain and slid to the ground. The second biker barely had time to realize what happened before Jason kicked his legs out from under him. Thud. His head hit the pavement. He didn't get up. 3 down. The leader's smile was completely gone now. His jaw tightened. He tried to act tough, but Jason could see the fear in his eyes. "All right, boys," the leader muttered. "He wants to fight." Jason flexed his fingers. His face didn't change. "No, I don't." The bikers hesitated. The little girl clutched the edge of her broken stand, her eyes jumping from the bikers to Jason. One biker growled. His hand moved toward his waist. He had a knife. Jason saw it. Before the knife could leave its sheath, Jason was already moving. In 2 quick steps, he grabbed the biker's wrist and slammed it against the light pole. The knife clattered to the ground. The biker yelped in pain. His fingers throbbed. Jason grabbed him by the jacket and threw him backward. The biker tumbled across the pavement, rolling twice before stopping. He groaned, too hurt to stand. Now only 2 bikers were left standing. The leader clenched his fists. This was not how things were supposed to go. Jason took a slow step forward. "Pick up the flowers," he said again. This time nobody laughed. A few minutes ago, the bikers had been having fun, breaking flowers, kicking the stand over, laughing at the little girl. Now their crew was on the ground, groaning in pain. The leader wiped his mouth, breathing hard. His pride was hurt, but he wasn't done yet. He spat on the ground. "Get him." The first biker, the one who had fallen first, got back up and charged at Jason with all his strength. Jason didn't even flinch. Before the biker could land a punch, Jason ducked, twisted, and bam. He slammed his fist into the biker's stomach. The man gasped, his breath stolen from his lungs. Jason grabbed him by the back of his jacket and threw him onto the sidewalk like a rag doll. He didn't get back up. Now only the leader was left. Jason took another step forward. The leader gulped. His hand shook. He glanced at his fallen gang, then at Jason. Slowly he bent down. He picked up the flowers. And then he pulled some cash from his pocket and placed it on the girl's stand. He turned without a word, climbed onto his bike and roared away. The others struggled to their feet and followed. The street was quiet again. Jason turned to the little girl. She stared at him wide-eyed. He nodded once. Then he picked up his coffee and walked away. Jason moved super fast. Before the man's fist could hit him, he ducked, grabbed the biker's jacket, and used the man's own strength against him. In one smooth move, Jason flipped the man over his shoulder. Thud. The biker hit the ground hard. His back smacked against the pavement. He gasped, trying to catch his breath. His body ached as he rolled onto his side, groaning in pain. One biker down. But another biker was ready to fight. This one had a big rusty metal pipe. His face was angry and he swung the pipe straight at Jason's ribs. But Jason was too fast. He grabbed the pipe in midair. The biker's eyes went wide with shock. His hands shook as Jason ripped the pipe out of his grip. Now Jason had the weapon. Jason spun the pipe in his hands once, then whack. He hit the biker right in the ribs. Crack. The man gasped, stumbling backward. He clutched his side in pain. His legs wobbled and then he fell to the ground. His face twisted in pain. He could barely move. 2 bikers down. Now there was only one left. The last biker stood frozen. His face turned pale. His eyes darted around looking for help. But there was no help. His friends were on the ground. He took a shaky step backward. His hands trembled. Jason turned to face him. His eyes locked onto the man's. Then Jason spoke. His voice was calm but firm. "Pick up the flowers. Pay her back. Now." The biker hesitated. He looked at his leader, hoping for backup. That was his mistake, because just then, the leader of the bikers pulled out a knife. The crowd gasped. A mother pulled her child away. People took small steps back, fear filling the air. But Jason? He didn't move. He wasn't scared. The leader gritted his teeth. His hand tightened around the knife. Then he lunged. The knife flashed in the light as it raced toward Jason. But Jason was faster. Before the leader could even blink, Jason caught his wrist in an iron grip. The leader grunted, his face twisting in pain. Then, crack. Jason twisted his arm hard. The leader gasped. The knife dropped to the ground. Before the leader could react, Jason's knee shot up, right into the biker's stomach. Wham! The leader folded like a piece of paper. His breath left him in a wheeze. He collapsed onto the ground, coughing and gasping. The fight was over. Jason hadn't even been touched. The bikers? They were beaten. Not just their bodies. Their pride was crushed too. The leader groaned, rolling onto his side. He coughed, spitting onto the pavement. His body ached. But even through the pain, his eyes burned with anger. Yet there was something else in his eyes now. Fear. He looked up at Jason and growled, You don't know who you're messing with." Jason didn't blink. He didn't flinch. Instead, he crouched down. His face was calm. His voice was quiet but dangerous. "That's where you're wrong," Jason said. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with." The leader swallowed hard. Jason leaned in just a little. His eyes locked onto the man's. Then his voice dropped even lower. "If you touch her, stand again." His voice got even colder. "You'll be drinking through a straw for the rest of your life." Silence. One of the bikers hurried over, grabbing the leader's arm. Another biker picked up their jackets. Then, red and blue police lights flashed. The gang was broken. One by one they limped toward their bikes. Humiliated. Their bravery was gone. Now all that was left was shame. The leader spat onto the ground. His pride was hanging by a thread. His voice shook, but he still forced the words out. "This isn't over." Jason smirked. "Yes, it is." Engines roared. The bikers sped off, their tires screeching. And just like that, the street was silent. It was over. The flower girl stood still. Her hands trembled. Her heart pounded in her chest. She stared at Jason. This man, this stranger, had stepped in without hesitation and ended the nightmare in just a few minutes. Jason glanced down. Near his boot, he saw a crushed flower. He bent down, picked it up, dusted it off. Then he gently placed it back on the stand. "Looks like you're still in business." The girl blinked. The fear in her chest loosened just a little. Then, something unexpected happened. A businessman who had been watching stepped forward. Without saying a word, he pulled out his wallet and dropped a crisp bill onto the stand. A woman followed. She picked up a bouquet. But instead of paying the normal price, she paid double. Then another person. And another. And another. More and more people stepped forward. Not just to buy flowers, but to support the girl. Her eyes filled with tears. She wiped them away. She couldn't believe it. Jason turned to leave. His job was done. But then, wait. Her voice was small but firm. Jason stopped. "Why did you help me?" For the first time, Jason hesitated. Then without looking back, he said, "Because someone should have." And just like that, he walked away, blending into the crowd. The girl watched him go. Her mind raced. This day had changed everything. This wasn't just about flowers. It wasn't just about money. It was about standing up to bullies. Jason Statham didn't need applause. He didn't need people to cheer for him. He stepped in because it was the right thing to do. Real strength isn't about having power. It's about using that power to protect those who can't fight back. As the girl sold out of flowers that day, she knew something for sure. She wasn't just a kid trying to survive anymore. She had seen real strength. Not in fists, not in threats, but in action. And as she placed the last bouquet into a customer's hands, she made a promise to herself. One day when someone needs help, I'll be the one who steps in. Because that's what heroes do. That's the Jason Statham way. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.